what we're doing, because we're not just sitting here to have conversation. We're sitting here to make your business scalable. But a lot of times people don't know what that looks like. All they come to the table with is the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So now here's what I want to do, because I want to kind of back into your story. So, Kimberly, when did you start your business?
I legally retired in
Okay, girl.
in
So when did you
2000
come out of retirement?
and in 2017. So what happened is I met my husband in 2013, and when we met, I said, I want to start my own business. I had been working in investment operations for so many years, and I was good at it, but I hated it. And so in 2017, Hurricane Irma was getting ready to hit Florida. My husband got offered a job on a Friday. He had to accept that Friday and report that Wednesday. So we packed him up. He came and we realized, oh, this is a real job. Because at that point, we didn't know. I mean, we
Right.
didn't. And it was a 60-day commitment that my husband quit his job for. Mm. I put in my 2-week notice on that Wednesday. We gave away everything that we owned, literally. And we moved to Florida sight unseen
Oh
with two
wow.
suitcases, a diaper bag, my 1-year-old in tow, and my 12-year-old with my sister. And I created a home here. And in that, I started selling hair. And I
Okay.
created a website. And a friend of mine called me and she said, "Who did your website?" I said, "I did." She said, "Can you do mine?" My husband came home 3 days later with a couple of coworkers who needed a website. I hired a team. And we've been going full steam ahead ever since. And we just evolved into who we are today, which is a SaaS systems that we sell, our digital marketing agency, and my consulting services. So
Okay. Now break down the acronym STAS. Girl, you said STAS, so we have to let the people know what is a STAS
So
system.
my SaaS system is your all-in-one solution for your business. Instead of giving them the acronym, we just gonna tell them the easiest way for them to remember that. It is the 14 different tools in your business that will allow you to grow, and it's all in one. So it's a CRM, your customer relationship management tool. It emails. It lets you text messages, send and receive. You can have your 800 number in there so you can inbound, outbound phone calls. You can have your calendar, you can invoice your membership, your funnels, your subscriptions. It does it all right there in that system for you. So instead of having to pay Active Campaign or MailChimp for email services, Ring Central for 800 number, a bookkeeping system, it's all right there inside that one tool for you for $99 a month.
I
So
love
it saves you money and it runs your whole entire business for you.
I love it. I'm glad you broke it down, because again, a lot of people, they hear these like higher level terms, just hear terms that they've never heard of, and it's good to kind of give some context of back, behind that. Now, I also heard the fact that in your particular situation, you necessarily didn't start with the end in mind. You just started, and then at some point, so really quickly, when did you evaluate and say, okay, you know what? We're not just going to be building websites. Here's where I see us going. And like, when did you start moving towards that? Like, how far along in your business were you when you started?
Honestly, I think it was when I turned over that website to my friend, and she was like, "Okay, now what?" And I kept hearing the now what. And I think it was at that moment that I understood, hey, how can I be the solution for the now what? And so in that now what stage, we became partners with a lot of the global brands. We are Google partners, we are Active Campaign partners, we are part of Meta leadership team. So, for example, a couple of months ago, Meta reached out and asked my company to be a part of this discussion panel for how they are going to move Meta forward next year. Well, would have been for 2024. And I just assumed it was going to be my point of contact and maybe some of the other people in the group. Oh no. When the camera came on, there were other people there from Meta, like other higher ups. I don't know if Zuckerberg was in the room, but there were a lot of higher ups there. There were sponsors there. And I led the conversation, guys, and I was so excited to do that. But goal for that was for me to go and become a resource, for me to learn what was available out there on the market, and then how I can then better serve my clients with their now what. So, hey, how do you create an effective email marketing campaign? How do you create a lead magnet? Because, I start talking and people go, girl, what you talking about? So
Right.
then how to then break that down as simplistic as I can to say, hey, you need to have more than just a social media following. What happens if social media is no longer available? How do you connect with your audience? And so things like that. And it just allowed me, and we've just been so blessed to be able to sit at these tables with these global brands. So that's really how we got started.
All right, now look, because I know how I started. So and pretty much the same thing. You just started and you're just like, okay, how are we gonna take off? So Lainika, tell
Yes.
us a little bit of like when you started. Did you start with the end in mind, or did you start because of a similar situation?
Okay, so this particular business, because this is not my first business, right? I've been starting businesses since 2002.
Okay.
This particular business, Trashlogic, I started in 2016. I I started with an end in mind, but not the end in mind, right? So what I thought was going to be the end is I've since changed my mind, decided that I do not want to pass this on to my children. I want to sell it and I want to go retire in Belize. So that is now my end in mind. But originally it was, how do I build something that my kids, because my kids were in high school at the time, how do I build something that once they get out of school, they can take over? Well, they were not interested in waste management or sustainability.
Are they ever? Are our children ever interested in what we build, trying to take it over?
So I couldn't get them. Go ahead.
So to that point, really quick, because I think this is a good starting point. Based on the tribe of women that we're building, how does that make you feel? Really quick, like how does that make you feel when you started with the goal of, okay, I see something that I can build and I can leave to my children and they can just be set and they don't have to go work and they can just, how does that make you feel?
I think when I started, I was super excited. I had planned this out. I didn't just jump out and start a business, right? So I had planned it out. I was very excited. I thought I knew exactly how this was going to go. Yeah. So I was, my daughter, this is the interesting thing. My daughter was with me when I started the company. So my son had gone to live with his dad temporarily. My daughter was in the 9th grade and I had a 6-figure job that I quit. And I told her, okay, listen, this is your last shopping spree. Her birthday was right before I started the company. So this is your last shopping spree. We're going shopping. And listen, you got to be prepared to be broke for a minute. We're going to be broke for a minute. Okay. For the year prior to starting Trashlogic, I saved 50% of my salary so that I would have seed money to start the company. So when I started the company, I put all of that into the business. I bought my first truck and we were off and running. But I immediately hired staff, right? So I had to have money to start with. And it was awesome for my daughter to be part of that process. And I thought that would really make her want to join the business later. But no, it did spark, though, her entrepreneurial spirit. So she's a senior in film school, and she and her friends have started a production company. So she got what I needed her to get out of it. She just doesn't want to take over my business, which is fine. It's fine. And I don't feel bad about it. I'm glad she got the message that she does not have to depend on somebody else to make a living or to create the life that she wants. I think that was the message I wanted her to have.
How did it feel for you, Christi? Like, or how does it feel? Did you start with wanting to leave this to your babies, or like how did it go?
I did, and there's still an opportunity to leave it. I do feel like it's going to do what it's done for Lainika's daughter, which is more so being able to see that there is another option than to going to work for somebody for the rest of your life. I do definitely see that in my 16-year-old, and I think happier to have that as an option for her to take than to take over what I'm doing. And I understand it. I mean, I have a family member who has a very successful tax business, and she would prefer to hand it off to somebody in the business. Her kids don't want it at all. She's my great aunt. And I feel the pressure, not that she's put it on me, but I feel the pressure to take it over because I'm like, is this what we always ask for? At least it's what I always ask for. I always ask for to be that child that somebody could hand over because I didn't get the house. You know, some people are raised and their parents buy their first house. Well, I didn't have that. I didn't have the parents who bought the first car because I had people around me who they did that for them. And so now I have the opportunity to take over a family business and I'm not interested.
But I think
And
that
so, no, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, but I think that happens more often than not, though. I think that
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it had my daughter, we're in the same boat. I keep telling her, hey, come learn what I do. And she's just not interested. She's 18. She's graduating this year, 5.4 GPA. Proud of her. But she wants to go to law school. And my thing is, I'm going to let her chart her own course. However, there's a however in that.
Okay.
My daughter and her best friend are both gifted when it comes to the gift of gab and their ability to do hair and makeup and things like that. And so I stopped selling hair when I started the marketing agency. But what I did tell them was, you guys, if y'all going to the same college, this is what we're going to do. I'll start back selling the hair. One of you guys install the hair, the other person does the makeup. And so when girls want to get ready to go out on the weekends, you have it, and this is what we're doing. And so, I want to then also teach them that, okay, hey, you don't have to walk in mom's shoes, but you do have to put on your own. And that
Right.
does, go into charting your own course and letting them figure out, okay, hey, I may not want to do what mommy's doing, but what mommy's doing can help fuel what I am doing. So then I can chart my own course.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what I'm hearing and what I've heard is, even though you had an end goal in mind, you wasn't necessarily married to it. So which allowed, if when it changed, then you were okay with it. A lot of times people are so married to what it is that they set out to do, that if when when it changes, it just throws them for a whole loop, and they just end up either being stuck
Mm-hmm.
or just giving it all up. Which
Mm-hmm.
I hate running into people that give up so soon, because it could be the very next day that you get that phone call, that you get that email, that you get that additional sale that will propel you to like another version, like a 2.0 version of what your idea started out to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always say, like, it's one of those things that, you know, when you get into that moment of giving up, of wanting to give up, you have to keep pushing, because if you do not push, you do not know like what's on the other side of that push. And one thing that we all can agree on, life is going to throw all kinds of things at us that's going to make us feel like giving up. There's literally probably not a day a week that I don't wake up and feel like, what am I doing this for? So I appreciate that. Now let's see. So now that I kind of know everybody's beginning story, if you could go back to the day that you started, the day before you started, right? If you could go back to the day before you started, what would you tell yourself to kind of help propel you or prepare you for where you are now? Like what is something that you would have shared with yourself or wanted to know?
I will say this. When I started out, I remember telling my mother, this is going to be $1 million business. And she said, yeah, I know, I could tell. And I said, oh, like that gave me a boost, right? I was like, oh, my mom sees it, right? So I was like, it's going to be $1 million business. I hit $1 million in less than a year. So I was not prepared. I did not know what to do after that. I was like, oh, okay. So what now? Like, what do I do now? So I would have gone back in the beginning, and I would have not put a cap on it. And I would have told myself, the sky is the limit. This is how you need to be thinking about this. And I would have changed my whole thought process, because in my mind at that time, now I know 7 figures is nothing, right? But at the time, I thought 7 figures was so much. So I just wanted, I was like that. And that was like the pinnacle. So at that point, I realized that I wasn't a CEO yet. I was just a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I needed to go back to school and learn how to be a CEO. So I went back to UCLA and learned how to be a CEO. But, that was, for me, that was like, oh, I probably should have done this first.
Well, don't skip too far past that, because I know you said, and I know this part of your story, but I know, and I want to bring this out because let's just all breathe, okay? We are pretty much first generation entrepreneurs, most part. Like my father, my late father, he was an entrepreneur, and we probably have some people in our family that were entrepreneurs, right? But doing it on the level that we're doing it, and if I'm speaking for anybody who has a little bit different story, let me know. But doing it on the level that we're doing it, we're pretty much first-time entrepreneurs. So when you said you were a year into the business, and then that's when you realized that you were not a CEO, you were an entrepreneur. What's the difference?
So I've always started businesses, right? I'm really good at that, right? I have great ideas. I know how to start my idea, get people to buy into my idea, right? That's the part of being the entrepreneur.
Right.
What I did not know how to do was how to build a team, how to grow a team, how to scale a company, how to get partnerships, like all of those things I did not even know I needed to know until I got to that place. And I was earlier on my live in my group, I was saying that when I started out, I didn't really understand that those things were important. I thought because I had a sales background, I could just jump out here and I could sell. And I proved it, right? I could sell. I made money. But then I didn't realize that I was real passive, right? And my employees would take that as dismissive, right? There were certain things I just didn't know about growing. I just didn't know, and I learned it. And I went back to school because I was like, I gotta make this work, because this is just the beginning, and I didn't want to have to give it to somebody else to run. So.
And so you said you went back to school. What did you go back to? Like, where did you go and what did you go for?
I went back to UCLA, and I went to the Anderson School of Business, and I took an entrepreneurship program, and it was tough. It's basically an MBA in 6 months, and I had to leave my home. I had to go to LA. I had to, be away from my business. A lot of people didn't understand why I was making that move. A lot of my key employees, people in my executive office were, why are you leaving? Why are you leaving the business? Like, this is a crucial time. We're growing right now. But I knew how important it was. Right. So I went there, and it was an incredible program. It's called Management Development for Entrepreneurs. I highly recommend it. I literally learned, like, from the ground up, from management to financial literacy to partnerships, to collaboration, like all of that was part of the program. And also meeting so many other entrepreneurs that were doing $100 million a year, right?
So with your $1 million to their $100 million, you're like,
right. There were people in my program doing that, but they came back because they needed that, training too.
Right.
So to be sitting next to those people and to still have those people in my network, because now we're a cohort, right? So we talk to each other all the time. But to have that experience and to be around people who have been doing it, and people who were starting to do it, and people who were doing it scared. I mean, the gamut was so vast, and it really did change the trajectory of my business. And then, so that was why during COVID, I was able to scale, and we were able to go into the East Coast, and we were able to go into Seattle. We were able to just keep growing. And we tripled our business during COVID, which is, something that a lot of businesses had the opposite effect.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to make a time to put emphasis on the point that you made about your goal was $1 million, and if you had to go back, it would have been, or at least my takeaway from it, because this is definitely what happened to me, is setting your goal higher or having the next step lined out for when you did reach that. I think we have the end in mind, and then we don't take consideration. We don't have a plan or even think about, well, when I hit this, then what? I know for sure, like when I started my business, it wasn't even meant to be a full time. It was just really to supplement my full time job. And I always tell everyone that I set my goal way too low. It was making extra $1,000 a month. And then when I hit that, I was like, well, let me go to 3,000. Then I hit that and I was like, well, let me go to 5,000. And I tell everybody now that if I had started off day one believing that 100,000 could have been made, I'd have made that the same time I made 1,000. But I just didn't believe it was possible, so I set it low. So like my goal now is the $1 million mark. And when I say million, it's like in-house million, not the whole business making a million, which is something I've also learned over the years of going from an employee mindset to a business owner mindset, or a business owner who manages others. Is that people speak in numbers, and I just want to tell people all the time, like, you buy a package for someone who, yes, they made $1 million, but did they pocket $1 million? Because pocketing $1 million and making $1 million is a totally different thing. And there are people who get this big, huge, to do about making $1 million, but they brought home 30,000 to their house. And there's a difference.
Yeah.
And so all those things that are learned over time, but I just wanted everyone to take a moment and make sure our audience caught that you can have an end in mind, but when you hit that end, then what? So if your end is to sell, like your end goal is to sell, then what happens after you sell?
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's, go back to kind of the point I made earlier, which is being that, and now what? Because that's something that you said. I hit my goal within that first year. Well, actually, in less than a year. And now what? And I think that's where a lot of our startups and small businesses, they have a goal. They're able to achieve, they're able to sell, they're able to get people to buy in. But now what? How do I then effectively scale and grow the business? What tools and resources do I need? A lot of people don't even know what's out there on the market, and then how to use that to create the right tech stack for your business that would then make that business sustainable, so that it can then run and scale to the next level, and so on and so forth. But there's not a lot of people that are talking about that, in terms of, you have to have that in the background. You have to have the right tech stack. You have to have things that will then allow you to grow beyond the goal that you set for yourself initially. And how do I then take it to that next level? So kind of good that you said that, Lainika, to kind of shine a spotlight on, and what's my now what?
Right.
That's my now what.
And to that, so now I want to kind of pivot into a different direction, because when I think about starting with the end in mind, now we need to focus on, okay, we're women in business, we're moms, we have teams. What type of like contingency plans do we need to have in place? Because we'll set these high level goals for ourselves. And so we have high level goals in our business, we have high level goals in our family life. But what do we need to kind of put into place? Because again, when life starts to happen, as it always does, and the weights that we carry on our shoulder, how do we make sure that life doesn't get in the way of like getting us off balance, if that makes sense?
There has to be balance there. There has to be, like you said, checks and balances that are put in place, because even if life doesn't life, and let's just say everything goes according to plan, you still have to have that work-life balance, and I think it kind of gets solved a little when I'm not gonna say a little, a lot, when you're an entrepreneur, because when you're working for someone else, you know the time that you're supposed to be there, the time that you're supposed to clock out, and the time that you go home. So depending upon the level that you reached at that particular organization, it's just that, you go to work, you do your, or I should just say, you do your 8 and you hit the gate,
Right.
you do it, and you do your job and you go home,
Right.
unless you've reached a level to where then that work comes home with you. But as an entrepreneur, you're on 24/7. Not to say that you're up 24/7, but when you're starting out, 9 times out of 10, you're everything in your business. So every hat that has to be worn is worn by that one person. But then there's still the family that's in the background. When I met my husband, I was a single mother. So I was working a full-time job. I was going to school, getting my master's degree, and I was trying to start my business, and it was just too much. And so when I met him, I said, hey, listen, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do my 8 and hit the gate anymore. I feel like I've done enough. But then once the roles reversed, and I pivoted and became a stay-at-home mom and an entrepreneur and I started to hire. That's when I had to look at, okay, everything on this side is doing well, is doing, better than I thought it would.
Right.
But now how do I then balance that? Because I have small children. How do I then tap in to that? And so I started setting things where, okay, at this time I have to stop working regardless of what's going on so I can cook dinner for my family. We came up
Well,
with the schedule of my husband helping to cook dinner. So I'm sorry, go
okay,
ahead.
real quick, because I mean that was a good point. So when you say at this particular time I have to stop working on my business, how did you relay this message to your clients? Because some of these clients feel like when they hire you and they paid that deposit, baby, you are on call.
Pretty much, but I'm so grateful that I would say the majority of, not everyone, but the majority of my clients are mothers. So, for whatever reason, I tend to work with more mothers than clients who are not. And so I've been fortunate enough to where they understand. But what they also know, when I'm on, I'm on. If they text me and if it's 9 or 10 o'clock and I'm back on, I will respond back. If it's early in the morning and I'm up, I do. I'm trying to get away a little bit from that, but I'm the type of person that, hey, I'm your resource, so I got you.
Mhm.
But so I'm grateful for that part because it was important to me to still be that present mom in my home and that wife to my husband who afforded me the opportunity to walk away from my full-time job. So I had to make sure that I, at least from 5 to 8, because my son goes to bed at 8:30. I've cooked dinner, or my husband has cooked dinner, or my daughter's helped out. He's had his bath, he's done his homework, and then when everybody goes upstairs, don't bother me. Let me get
Right.
back to
Back at it.
doing what I need to do to continue to grow the business.
I want
Good.
to say, I want to say that I have entrepreneured through different stages of my children's lives.
Okay.
So it has been different every single time, right? So
Hmm.
now my business is set up. Both of my kids are in college, right? But they were in high school when I started. So I wanted to make sure that I was done by 3 o'clock by the time they got out of school.
Mhm.
So I set my business up so that we would start at 6 a.m. and by 3 o'clock, I could shut everything down and
Okay.
send everybody home. Right. So I set
Now,
my business up that way.
okay, so that was the family side, but also now you know you have a team that needs you as well. So how do you
Yes.
manage your team to know when you're off, you're off?
So my team is also off at 3. So when I when I started the business, I'm telling you, I built it this way. When I started the business, I said we start at 6, we end at 3. This is a very, very strict timeline. We do not work on Saturdays ever. I don't care what the reason is. We don't work on Saturdays. Everybody needs to refresh. Now, we
Okay.
service our clients 6 days a week. So we service Sunday through Friday. So that means on Saturday, I am very, very strict about nobody working. And I don't care what the reason is.
Oh, nice.
Nobody works on Saturday. Everybody needs to rest. So they know, only call me if there's an emergency. And I've had emergencies, right, where somebody stole a truck or, something happened like really big in the business where I had to actually, go to work. But I don't require my team to go to work. I will go to work, or, I'll get somebody in my family to go and help me with that. But on Saturdays, we don't work. So that means that during the week, when I say we're done, we're done. And, I have employees that sometimes say, well, this client emailed me at 5 o'clock and da, da, da. And I say, okay, you can respond in the morning and let them know we close at 3 o'clock. I wasn't able to respond to your message until this morning. We deal in trash. None of it is an emergency,
Right.
right? If the trash is going to be there in the morning. So let them know, it's 6 a.m. I'm responding now. I'm sorry you reached out to me after hours. I wasn't able to to respond. So that is how my business is set up now. Now, when the kids were smaller and I worked from home, so my first business was a catering company. That was my first 6-figure business. My daughter was 3 months old when I started that company.
Oh wow!
So I remember doing a commercial for Pepsi in San Francisco, and I had to take my baby with me, and the call time was 3 a.m. So, I was working with my baby, and then I had another baby a year later, right? So I was working with my babies during that time. And at some point I said, okay, now I need balance, because I was in the hospital still taking catering orders, right? While I was giving birth to my son. So I said, okay, now I need some balance, because this is ridiculous, right? You get excited, right? You get excited. You start business, start making money. You're like, oh yeah, I'm excited. I want to work. Oh, the client's calling. Oh, I got to take this, right? So I had my husband bring me my laptop and everything in the hospital. Crazy. So after that, I said, I need some balance. And I took on a partner. So I took on a partner, and so that I could split some of these duties. And that really helped me out.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. And I'm glad you brought up the power of partnerships, because again, starting with the end in mind, I know even for Christi and I starting this podcast, the reason I feel so confident about what it is that we're doing. So we both have our own businesses and our own families outside of this thing that we share, right? And again, the reason why I feel so confident is because I have somebody else who can help carry the weight. And then not only outside of Christi and I, but we have other people in our lives that, can help pour into this whole mission. Like everybody is buying into this mission that we have, and people are coming together. And it's such a beautiful thing when people can come together. And I will say this, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts about this as well. Prior to me coming into like my late 30s, I have to do everything. I have to run it all. Nobody can do it better than me. I am it. This is it. If it's not done by me, it will not be done.
Wait, you changed? You've changed?
If you think I'm bad now, I was worse 2 years ago.
You know what?
But being honest, finding, I think it's essential though to find your community, and when I say community in this aspect, I mean your personal community, your community that's going to get behind your mission and your vision, and like really help it take off. And I couldn't be more thankful for my community that I have, because again, I really could see how 2023 went. If I was just trying to do all the things by myself, we wouldn't be here right now. Honestly, like we would not be here sitting here right now. So I'm thankful for that. Like, do y'all want to kind of share some things of some community building that you've had to do within your own lives?
Well, I've generally heard from everyone the mindfulness that they put into place to avoid burnout. When I hear Lainika talk, or even Miss K talk, Tameshia, like when I joked, but I do realize that you have allowed people to come in and to help you in ways that have been cognizant of where your strengths are and where you need people to serve to make up for your weaknesses. So I do joke, and I totally understand, because I'm that I joke because that has been me too. It's like I have gone back and forth to my level of leadership, because level 4 is where you're able to allow other people to do things. And I will jump back to 3 real quick, because I'm like, y'all ain't doing it right. Let me forget it. Don't worry about it. I got it. And so, but the mindfulness of things you need to put in place, and setting realistic goals or realistic parameters on yourself. And I understand where Lanika's saying is, I've been there. Like I was laughing because I was breastfeeding. So I jokingly said, it was like, listen, I had a baby on a titty on the left, and I was recording videos to go out on the right. But you don't always have to be. There are going to be times and places in our lives that you're going to have to go hard like that. But it shouldn't always be that way. And that's how you avoid the burnout. And that's how you're mindful, like for 90 days or even for a whole year. Like it's the beginning of the year, and I've already told myself, like, don't throw it in yet, Christi. It's only 2 weeks. You promised yourself 12 months. You promise yourself you're going to start this and stick it out for 18 months. and because I know what can happen to an idea if you stick with it for 12 months, if you stick with it for 18 months. So I do like and wanted to bring light to what I'm hearing, the mindfulness of putting things in place to avoid the burnout, which a lot of people experience when they're looking at the end in mind. It's like you don't make it to the end because you burn yourself out and aren't mindful of what you can take on yourself. What you got for Miss K?
It's funny that you said that. I think social media has created the mindset that if it don't go viral, if it don't take off overnight, if I'm not a multimillionaire within 3 days, my business sucks.
Girl.
And then you should see the amount of time I have to spend with people and tell them it don't. I'm not going to say never because I never say the word never and always, because it's never, 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 always. But there are very few times where that has occurred. Even McDonald's has had to pivot and move a time or two.
Yes.
They ain't the same McDonald's that they were when we were in business years ago. And
Mhm.
so with that mindset, yes, you're gonna have to pivot and move. I think we kind of talked about that earlier, is that how do you then turn that around in your business? Because yes, a lot of times we do want to say, girl, I'm done. I've been trying to sell this business for a month and nobody buying. Okay, well, hey, you got to build that brand recognition. Do people know who you are? Have you went and did your customer journey? Have you tried to figure out from the time that they come into contact with you until the time they make that sale? Have you created who you're selling to, so it's a lot that goes into it, aside from I'm just going to be this viral sensation. Great if you do, but I think that's first of all where that burnout starts, and that throw in the towel mentality is because, hey, I didn't start trending overnight. My
Right.
hashtag didn't go viral. You said no, I never said that.
Right.
And I will never tell you that. That is not what's going to help you get to that next level. That business type is not sustainable, and it's not going to allow you to scale that to where you need it to be, dollars and cents, if you want to make that exit strategy, and or you want to turn it into a long-term goal.
I
Mhm.
want to speak
Absolutely.
to that because I think you made a really good point. I always say that real business is not Instagram sexy, right?
Woo!
Real
Right
entrepreneurship
there.
is not Instagram sexy. You don't really see the losses, right, on social media. You see the highs, you see people celebrating, but you don't really see when people are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, like, I try to share when I'm really having a hard time, when I'm struggling,
Mm-hmm.
without putting my business out there. I try to just share when things are not as glamorous as people expect it to be. And you made a good point earlier, Christy, where you said just because you make $1 million in business doesn't mean you have $1 million in the bank, right? When you have a 6-figure business, you also have expenses that go with a 6-figure business. When you have a 7-figure business, you also have expenses that go with the 7-figure business.
Right.
And people are so focused on how am I going to look to other people, and you're
Mm-hmm.
comparing yourself. And I always tell people, I don't really care what's happening on the internet as far as Trashlogic goes, because my customers are not there. I get my customers from trade shows.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So these, the customers the people on social media, that's just for brand recognition, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really not where I'm selling. That's not
Mm-hmm.
where the transaction is happening. So we really need to get to a place where we understand that your Instagram feed is not your business. Your business
Exactly.
is the thing that you show on Instagram, but Instagram is not your business. And a lot of people are trying to make that their business.
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely.
think that's where a lot of that stress comes from. And I think another point I wanted to make, because I wanted to make sure I made the points before I moved on. The way that I really took the balance back in my life was to replace myself in every role. Ms. K,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about when you start, you're doing everything, you're wearing all the hats, right? I told you I started out with staff. I started out with an assistant. I started out with a bookkeeper, and I started out with a field staff member, because I knew I couldn't do everything. So I didn't pay myself. I drove Uber and I did Airbnb so I could pay my bills.
Right.
And every penny I made through the business went back into the
To the
business.
business same.
right? And I replaced myself in every role so that by year 2, I didn't have to do anything else but let my business run. So now, last 3 years, I've lost a lot of people. I've had a lot of things happen in my life, and I had to take some time off. There was a 6-month period where I didn't go into the office at all. I didn't work at all, but my business runs itself. And I
Yeah.
had to get to that place so that I could be able to take that time when I needed it.
And it's
Yeah.
funny that you said that, Lanika, because early on I said the same thing. Like after I got so many websites, I knew I could not do it all on my own, nor did I want to. And so I hired as well, because there was just no way humanly possible that I was going to be able to learn it all, do it all, and then get burned out.
Mhm.
But the good part with my staff is they're in the Philippines, and so when it's
I know.
nighttime over there, yes, so when it's nighttime there and vice versa. So I am up at 10 o'clock at night having staff meetings.
Mhm.
However, when I get up in the morning, all the tasks that I've assigned to them has
Are
been
done.
completed. And so it
Mhm.
then
Hmm.
allows me to focus on other aspects of my business. And I think that's the thing too, is to getting people to understand that you can go in with the mindset that, hey, I'm going to do it all, but it's not sustainable. It's
No,
just not.
it's
It's
just not.
not. And it's not scalable. Your business will not grow beyond that because I have what I call this. You're only going to get here. You can only take so many orders and service those orders yourself. So you get here, you get stuck because you got to fulfill the work of your service based business. And then once all the work is gone, your pipeline is clear because you couldn't do any more sales, you couldn't prospect, you couldn't get any more leads, you couldn't service those leads. So now you're scrambling trying to find more money. And
Yeah.
that's why you keep doing this, and your business can never scale and grow to the heights that it needs to because you're holding it back with that I have to do it all mindset. It doesn't
Mhm.
work that way.
And
Yeah,
speaking of
I
that,
found that people hit that
yeah.
sometimes because they're finding so much value in being needed, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can't find, it's almost like changing where you find value at and finding value in the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you're not needed. Like give yourself a pat on the back for being so effective at training your team, so effective at finding the right people for the job. So like give yourself a pat on the back for that as opposed to not being able to let go because you find value in people being able to say, oh, you did a great job. But
Exactly.
realizing that them telling your team did a great job is you doing a good
Doing a
job.
great job.
So I found so
Mm-hmm.
many people not being able to take their hands out of it because they want people to say that they did it, you did it, and you did. Like the team couldn't do a good job if you didn't manage it, if you didn't get the right people
Mm-hmm.
in the positions. But they want to have all credit in that. I find that a lot of time, like you're burnt out because you want to be able to say you did it all, and that isn't sustainable. And that's how you end up hitting that ceiling. I was talking to somebody who does home inspections, and they're making good money, but their good money is at a halt because they don't have assistants. So they're missing appointments that they could have taken because they didn't remember because they're physically doing the work and they can't physically do the work and manage the calendar. And so I love that point that you made, Miss K. And for those who are listening and find themselves in that position, is that's why I say it's time to go lay on somebody's couch and have somebody help you come to the
Mm-hmm.
conclusion why this is so difficult for you to let go.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And we have some really good questions and feedbacks coming into the chat. I did want to address English. She has a question. She said, if you could put a number on it about how much of your time was spent in networking, face to face or otherwise, during your first 18 months of business, can you expound a bit on effective networking and balancing that time with other business aspects? And I will say this too, because Christy and I, this actually happened in our last conversation that you and I had about how networking doesn't have to be so formal, right?
Mm-mm.
We talk about how you can network at the grocery store, you can network at I mean, there's all types of ways to network. You kind of have to find those nuanced times to network, but it doesn't necessarily have to be so formal. And for me, I'll just kind of share a little bit of my story and how I do it, and then I would definitely want you guys to chime in too, is that I actually put myself in position to make this a part of my year strategy. So I became the Atlanta leader for the women into networking group, right? So because I, became the leader of this particular group, I have to plan at least two networking events per month. So I'm going to do two things. I'm building my own personal tribe, through networking. And then I'm also serving someone else who actually started this particular organization. So for me, it was a twofold thing because I love to serve. So I found that serving her and her vision, and then also being a little selfish for myself because, me being the person who plans the events gives me that opportunity. And now I
Right.
know at least two times a month, I'm committed to showing up and being and networking in those particular settings, which doesn't tie up the rest of my time because again,
Mhm.
I run a business, I have this show, I have all this, I have family, I have all these different things. So again, I think it's going back to what we were saying in the beginning is if you plan for it, just putting time. So if y'all can actually kind of go into what she was saying is kind of putting a number or like a percentage or, you know, of that part.
I will say this: I spent probably most of my first year networking. Like I said, we got most of our customers from trade shows, so I did every trade show that was available. Um, I I took I took property managers and regional managers and vice presidents out to lunch all the time. But I am an introvert, so I was dying inside. I hated it. So but I knew what I had to do. And so as soon as I could, as soon as I had enough revenue, I hired a sales rep that could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, now my networking is with, just people within my group, people within my mastermind. I'm networking with other entrepreneurs because something you said at the beginning about it being feeling like you started alone. I didn't feel like I started alone. I felt alone once I got to a certain level.
Mm,
I felt like there was no one who understood me. There was
right.
nobody I could talk to about this. Like the friends you had don't understand where you are. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you're talking about your problems, they don't know what you're talking about. They can't even relate to that.
Right.
Right. So it's like, what are you talking about? Like, so but that networking for me was hard. And I did it because you have to do it, but I didn't like it.
Yeah. Networking for me is pretty easy. I'm an introvert extrovert. I can give you enough time and then after that I go back into my shell because I need to regroup. But I am a people person and I love getting out and meeting people. And so I'm a part of the chamber here locally. So I do attend a lot of the chamber events. If there's any other networking events that my partner or someone say, hey, let's go and do this, I will attend those. But also, Tameshia said something earlier. You're a walking, talking salesperson. When I was selling hair, I would put on my t-shirt with my company name on it. I would take business cards and I would go in the mall and I would walk up to people who I saw wearing weaves and saying, hey, where are you getting your hair from? You may want to buy hair with me. And I would give my friends some cards. I would give my daughter cards. And that's what we would do. And even now, if there's a business that I've identified here locally that I want to work with, I do the donut method. And so I'll go to Krispy Kreme and I'll buy a couple dozens of donuts. I'll take a brochure, flyer, or whatever, and I'll attach it to those donuts and I'll take it inside the business. Talk to whomever is sitting at the desk saying breakfast is on us. And then maybe a day or two later, have myself or a salesperson call back and say, hey, we left the donuts, blah, blah, blah. It's a quick icebreaker and it's easy to let people know, hey, this is who I am. These are the services that I provide, but not being too salesy, but it's kind of like an icebreaker. And so when you're looking at it like that, in terms of networking, think about your comfort level, what
Mm,
you're comfortable with. How comfortable are you going up and just starting a conversation out of the blue? And I tell you another good icebreaker, Blink, BLINQ. So if you haven't heard about it or if you haven't used it, and no, I'm not an affiliate for them, them, although I do have my own affiliate program. But I'm not an affiliate for Blink. But it's a QR code business card. And what I
Mhm.
love about Blink is that once someone scans that QR code, you can stand there and have them to send their contact information back to you. So instead of you giving someone your business card and waiting on them to call you and hoping that they call you and picking up the phone like, hey, is the service working? Now you have
Right.
a list of qualified leads because it's a warm lead because you've made that introduction, hoping that the impression that you left is a lasting one. And then just say, hey, I met with you. I saw you at the last chamber networking event, or I, saw you at the mall or wherever it was. And I just wanted to reach out and see if we could schedule some time to talk about my products or services. So those are kind of a few tips to just say, hey, listen, if you haven't started networking, please in 2024 do so, but just making sure that you're leaving that impression to where when you reach back out, they do remember that they came in contact with you.
Yes, and if you want to quantify something, because I am a quantifying person, and when you look at sales and numbers and things like that's my jam. And so I'll just give my situation, what I'm working on, which is solar panel installations in homes, right? So how I backtrack is once I get a sale, like I don't have any numbers to go off of. I can't say, well, I did this many installs last year, and this is how many people I had to talk to get in. This is how many flyers I put out. Like I don't have that to go off of, right? So
Mm-hmm.
once I get my goal install. Let's say the goal install is 10 installs. Then I'm gonna look back because at the end of the day, business is conversation. Like you have to have conversations to have business transactions, whether it's a service you're trying to get or a sale of a product you're trying to get. So then once you get one, let's say you get one install. That's what one install. Then how many people did I talk to? How many
Mm-hmm.
Zoom calls, solar analysis did I get done? So let's say I talked to 50 people. Out of those 50 people, I got 10 onto a call. And out of those 10 calls, I finally got a sale. Then that's my number. That's how many minimum conversations I got to have to get this minimum number of people onto a
Mm-hmm.
Zoom call to get the sale at
Mm-hmm.
the end. So as far
Mm-hmm.
as, when you're saying for yourself, like, what is your number? You can't go by our number. We're in different businesses, different industries, have different end goals. But you got to look at your number. If you've been in business before and say you want to increase your sales and your sales was, 100 last year, well, how did you get to 100? Like, how many ads did you run? How many appointments did you set up? How many network events did you attend? If you attended 5 network events and ended up with nothing out of it, then you have to say to yourself, well, what do I need to change that I'm doing at these events? So that, because
Exactly.
for me, I'm an introvert too. So I literally will sit in the car before a networking event and say how many people, because what I've learned is the more people you help, then the more you can get out of it. So when I go to networking events, I don't go in there trying to sell myself. I go in there to see how many people I can help. So
Mm-hmm.
how many people do I want to say I've helped by the time I've left this event?
Mhm.
And then when I leave,
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the car because I'm overwhelmed once I've left the networking event because I'm introverted too. And people have really just, my time is like I'm on a timer. Like I got 60 minutes before I'm going to be ready to run for the hills. And so when I get back to my car, while it's front of mine, I take notes right then in my phone because it's digital. I'm going to go look for this notebook later. Talk to this person, said I was going to do this. Well, and then how many touch points? Like how many times will I touch that person at this networking event before I'm going to now share what I can, my end goal. So I
Mm-hmm.
think those are some things that I would suggest putting in mind if you want to quantify for yourself how many networking events you got to do.
And then that too can go into your CRM. So then that, goes back to your systems and things like that because you can put those notes, you can actually then share that information amongst your team. And so you're able to see, like you said, how many touch points you had with that client, what information have you already given them, what value, because you talked about that as well, what value have you provided? Because 9 times out of 10, people are already familiar with the products and services that you sell. So it's the value that you provide that actually seals the deal more often than not. And so it's being able to then see that. And like you said, how many ads that you run, the data and analytics that goes into a business is something that every business needs to have. Like you need to be able to see numerically how well your business is performing. That is from your ads, your social media campaigns, your emails, what's your click-through rates, bounce rates, are people reading this type of stuff, all of that, because then if people aren't reading it, why are you still sending it? But a lot of times we don't look into the analytics so that we'll then know how to effectively move the business forward. So I'm glad that you said that, and hopefully that's something that businesses start to incorporate in 2024 is the analytics. So you'll be able to see how much of your traffic is coming from social media, how many of your blogs are being read every month, how many backlinks you're getting, meaning that how many other websites are linking to yours, so that you'll know that the value and the information that you're providing is something that people want to read it. They see it as a resource. And so that's something that I think we all need to start having inside of our conversations with our teams and with ourselves as to, okay, I don't have this information. I don't know how many people I talked to last year. I just know I made money. Okay, which is great. But
Right.
how do you now use that information going forward to effectively scale and grow your business?
I
Right.
want to say it's important to also understand that if you do have a hard time talking to people and you do have anxiety, the job that I quit before I started my business, I was the national director of sales. So I had a sales team. And, I would tell people it's not, you don't have to have all this charisma and, be outgoing to be a great salesperson. You have to have discipline, right? So as long as you know what
That's
your,
my word right there.
yeah, as long as you know what your metrics are, you know how many people you need to talk to, just like you said, you will be able to meet your goal. Now, the important thing to understand is that if you don't like talking to people one-on-one, you need to find opportunities to talk to a whole bunch of people at one time.
At
So
one
you can
time.
cut that out, right? So I used to go to chamber events and, I would just speak to the room and then I would get leads that way. Like I would find great ways to get groups of people together to talk to them. I'll put an informational Zoom call together and just send out
Mhm.
invitations and say, okay, if anybody wants information on this, you can hop on. So if you're a person that, gets drained by, interacting with people, then you need to think of ways that you can personally effectively meet your goal, right? If you
Mhm.
need to speak to 3 people, where are you going to find those 3 people,
Right.
right? Without having to go and talk to 20 people
Absolutely.
individually.
All great stuff. Like, look, I've picked up some things myself. I can't wait to go back and watch the replay because
Me neither.
Thank
gems.
you.
Okay, so we have another question. Do any panelists use surveys or customer service and quality control metrics? Like, what do you guys do on a higher level? What do you guys do in your businesses for that?
So glad you asked that. We do reputation management. So reputation management is just basically that how people see you, how they value the products and services that you provide. Why? Because typically when somebody's looking for something, they're going to go look at the reviews. At least I know I do. I'm going to Google your business. I want to see what other people said about the products and services that you're offering. And so we have a reputation management dashboard. And what we do is after you completed a product, service, or whatever it is that you provide, we do send that over to the clients and get their information, and just say, hey, did they enjoy it? You talked about Airbnbs. Was it a great stay? Or, did I like the service that she gave? And so, yeah, that is something I think, again, that we all need to incorporate in our business because it lets you know what you're doing well. And it also lets you know the areas in which you need to improve upon. And so, even if you get a bad review, use that as a method to improve upon whatever product or service it is that they say that it wasn't up to their standards or it didn't meet what it was that they were expecting it to be. So, to make a long story short, yes, surveys is a great way to get feedback at the end of a project or at the end of any type of transaction that you have with the customer.
And
Yeah,
and
we
I will say
okay.
this. So get familiar with the term net promoter score. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of every delivery that we do here at Order Carter, there is a simple survey that is sent out to every client or every customer, and you will be amazed at how many responses you get. People want to share how their service was. Can you? I mean, just think
Mm-hmm.
about your own personal self. You get a survey, whether it was exceptional or whether it was subpar, you want to share your experience. And
Mm-hmm.
the few questions that we ask is, how would you rate your service, 1 to 5, and we give you 3 questions. How would you rate your service? What's the likelihood that you're going to use us again? And then what's the likelihood that you will refer us to an addition to other people, to your friends and family, right?
Mm-hmm.
With those 3 questions, we know as a company how we're doing. Okay, we know that if you rated our service, great. We know what we continue to do based off of that particular transaction. If you didn't, there's some additional drill down questions that we send you. And then also, our biggest thing though is how likely are you going to refer other people? That's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing. That is the
Mm-hmm.
free marketing that you do not
Mm-hmm.
have to spend a dime for. If you can get people to go out and be your cheerleaders, business, you will be booked and busy and blessed.
Yes.
Okay. Yes,
Yes.
I just wanted to bring up that because, like I said, when I became familiar with Net Promoter Scores, it took out the long, drawn-out questionnaire that people think that they have to come up with. You can drill down on those 3 questions, get those answers, and go from there.
Mm-hmm. We do wellness calls every week. So I have my team. Now, my team in the Philippines, they work on PST time, right? So they work at 11
Mm-hmm.
p.m. their time, and they call my customers. So we send them a survey every week. Most people don't even open the email and fill it out, right? So I have my staff actually call and say, "Oh, we didn't get your wellness survey back this week. So we just want to check and see how we're doing." Right. So they actually are making contact over the phone with all of my clients. I have 200 clients. So they make contact with them every week and just find out how we're doing. Is there anything that we missed? Is there anything we need to be doing? Is your billing okay? Like all those kinds of things. We just make sure that everything's going smooth. And if it's not, we have a 24-hour cure process. So if someone says something's wrong, we have 24 hours to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of our policy. So we have a ticket system. I don't care what it is. I don't care if somebody says, "Oh, the donuts you brought us," like you said, the donuts you brought us are stale. Okay. you know, put a ticket in and somebody will deliver some fresh
Fresh
donuts, right?
donut.
Right.
We just want to make sure that within 24 hours we have addressed whatever it is that they
Mm-hmm.
were, that they had an issue with.
Yeah, we have a same 24-hour turnaround time too. And if we can't fix it within 24 hours, we communicate that to say, hey, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, ladies. I already see
Amazing.
we are going to have to bring y'all back. Well, y'all already know in March, you're both invited to come join us for our 1-year celebration. Mark your calendars. It's St. Patrick's Day, whatever day of the week that is, whatever the date is.
17th. I think it's
17th,
March
yeah.
17th.
March 17th. So yeah, mark your calendars because again, we want to bring in all of our amazing guests that we've had during our first season or first year of the Point Blank Period podcast. But this right here, let me tell you, y'all set the bar for panels. Like y'all set the
Right.
bar. It's only up from here.
Hey, you guys, this was so much fun. I really
Yes.
appreciate you guys having us here. This was a really good conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I'm so glad to have virtually met you, Christi and Lainika. I already knew Tameshia from working with her years prior, but I have enjoyed this conversation today. I have.
Yes.
Me
So
too. I
let's
can't
do
wait to go
this.
back and watch it on Point Blank Period on YouTube to take down my notes. I had to stop myself because I was about to take notes. I was like, I'll just watch the replay.
So let's do this because I want to make sure everyone knows where to follow everybody here because we look. 2024 need to be the year of community building, and so
Yes.
we all need to stay connected. And all of the people that I've seen join in on the conversation, like please go and make sure that you're following these amazing panelists that we have on here. So starting with Miss K, and then we'll just go around. Let's just kind of tell everybody, again who we are and where they can find us, and we will go ahead and slide up.
Well, again, I just want to say thank you again, ladies of Point Blank Period, for having me today. Thank you, Lainika, you guys for sharing the panel. I have thoroughly enjoyed myself today. Let me just say that, hands off to you guys for having this type of conversation, because I think is very well needed. But if you are looking to follow me, guys, you can follow me online. I am Miss K, the money strategist. I help small business owners and startups find the glitch in their niche and monetize it. You can follow my digital marketing agency at Ecode, that's ECODE, or my social media scheduling tool that we have that's similar to a buffer or a Hootsuite. So there is no excuses for you guys to not get social this year. It's at Ecode Social. And right now we are offering a free 5-day trial. And if you're looking for more conversation, drop into my group, the Entrepreneurs Hub on Facebook. There we are meeting every third Thursday. We're talking about different strategies to help you grow and scale your business. So 2024, we're going to get digital and we're leaving it all on the table.
Hey.
All right, Miss Lainika, take it away.
Hello. So I'm Lainika Johnson. I am the owner of Trashlogic and Eco in the City. So we are sustainability consultants, also waste management porters. And so we really service property management companies across the U.S. You can follow me on Lainika Johnson, and on that platform. So I'm Lainika Johnson on Instagram, on Facebook, and on TikTok. On Lainika Johnson, I really share information about how to scale your business to 7 figures and how to integrate AI into your business so that you're more efficient and you make more money. So follow me at Lainika Johnson.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, Miss Christi, let's do it.
Hey, so right there you see, you can follow me on Instagram. I am Christi Farmer. I am currently the owner of Modern Solar. So you can gotmodernsolar.com and see if it's a good fit for your home. I am also here on the Point Blank Period. Follow, like, and subscribe us over on YouTube and on Facebook and on Instagram. We can get all the business needs you need. We make the point, like all the points we made today. You fill in the blank and then take action, period.
I love it. I love it. And again, my name is Tameshia Weaver. I am the co-founder of Order Carter. Over there, we are a restaurant and retail delivery service. We specialize in not only delivering your food and all the things that you can get from the store, but doing it well and delivering happiness with it, right? So many times you order something and it doesn't show up the way in which you ordered it, or the time in which you ordered it, or, even like how you get it. So, we get so many different um, comments of how our service different from a lot of the top services out there. So we would definitely want you to give us a try. We are in Middle Georgia, Thomaston, and Barnesville. We also deliver catering in Atlanta, Charlotte, and also Dallas. And then as well, again, I'm the co-host of the Point Blank Period podcast, where we, like, one of our main missions is to just be a support and build a community around women who are entrepreneurs, who build teams, and also who have family members that they take care of. I know any lady in that situation, whether you have a team or whether you are a what we call mompreneur, there's a different type of weight that you carry with these roles that we've stepped into, and we want to just, like I said, be a resource and just be there for you as you carry that weight. Okay. So again, thank you so much, ladies, for being here, for saying yes. We look forward to meeting you both in person really soon. And yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and thank you everyone for tuning in. Those who stuck around from the beginning to the end, we appreciate you. We appreciate the love and the comments and the questions. Can't wait to go back and read them and respond to them. So we just appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And till the next time, peace.
Bye.